themselves in the Word. So really that's what this forum does. It allows you to experience the Word for yourself, access it for yourself, get various perspectives, get tools to understand it, and enjoy the dialogue. So we come and we talk about it in hopes that you will be able to go and read it for yourself later, and probably encourage other people to read it for themselves and teach them to do the same. Did I miss anything, guys?
No.
Tell me a little bit about your experience if you can. If I didn't miss anything, tell me a little bit about your experience with Water for the Thirsty. I know I'm putting you on the spot. What has been your experience?
I mean, it's just, for me, it's just seeing the Bible. I've never done a daily reading plan. I've never read the Bible through for the year. My mom always tells me about hers every day. And so, you know, I do it in spurts. Like, I'll go hard for like 2 months, and then I won't do it for like a month or two. And then I'll go hard for a couple months. And so this has actually helped me. I'm still not as consistent as I would like to be, but it helps me. It gives me a path to go, and I've actually found a love, like an enjoyment, a satisfaction when I read. That I'm actually, you know, contrary to popular belief, I am growing.
Anybody else want to share a little bit about what this experience has been like for you?
I mean, I think for me, I've always been someone who just questions a lot of things. So in like other traditional Bible classes or studies, I ask these questions and I get looked at like I have 12 heads. And I think at Water for the Thirsty,
maybe it's on the plats.
It probably at Water for the Thirsty, I feel like it's a area where my question is accepted. Whether or not anyone has an answer is up for question, but at least the question is accepted. It's something we discuss. It's something that's not taken as being blasphemous or just, you know, you're just being difficult to be difficult. And I really like that because it's just real. A lot of times we don't have an answer, or a lot of times there are things we shy away from because, I really don't know how to answer that, or I may have some un-Christ-like answer. And I'm just happy that there's a forum that I'm not discouraged in reading and thinking anymore. I can think, I can ask, and we can talk about it and be satisfied at some point with an answer or no answer whatsoever. So.
All right. I guess we're going to move in this direction.
I enjoy Water for the Thirsty because it's a forum where we use the Bible and not everyone else's opinion, because there's so many books, there's so many different things you can pull upon, and they make no sense. But when you say, as a Christian, I believe in the Bible, and you start from there and say, this is where I'm going to pull my answers, we can all talk together and not feel like someone is trying to badger us, someone's trying to hurt us, or someone's trying to prove us wrong. We're all trying to get to the same correct answers.
All right. Randy, I know you're new to this.
I think that initially when we spoke about it, well, I was familiar with it because Keisha had been doing, I think for about a year, she's been reading the readings along with you, and you guys were talking. I was reading some of the stuff you'd send back and forth, and I thought, oh, this is a good deep conversation. I'm pretty self-directed when it comes to reading the Bible. My whole perspective toward life is if I don't connect with Christ, then it's a waste of my time to say that I'm a Christian. There's not a point to say, you know, I'm a Christian, but yet I have not read the Bible. Those two things are antithetical to me, but maybe that wasn't the correct word, but as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that wasn't the right one.
That's all right. I don't even know what it means. So yeah.
I was actually writing it down. Like, I'm about to use that in about 5 minutes.
Again, but I think that this is what I believe is the most important element. When you are a Christian, you are not to be doing that by yourself. It's not in isolation. It can't be in isolation. How do you tell someone anything about anything? How do you share something by yourself? You can't. It's impossible to do that. And so simply for the fact that we are making the effort, I think, first and foremost, that's what God is wanting us to do. And then secondly, I believe that when we are all seeking and reading and praying about the same thing and looking at the same thing, God can speak to us in the same way, and it's happened. We've come to the same kind of conclusions a lot of the time, and so I've had some friends ask me, well, what's your focus? What's directing it? Where do you get the answers from? If it's right or wrong, it's not about whether or not we're right or wrong. It's that we're seeking. God never said it's about you being absolutely right or wrong. It's that you seek me. When you seek me, you'll find me. He never said when you seek me, you'll get 7 correct answers out of 10, and then you'll know if you're right or not. That's not the point. The point is that we are seeking, and we're seeking him as a group. We're questioning. Nothing wrong with questioning. There's nothing wrong with asking God, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense. Why did this person die? Or why did this happen? He wants us to go to him with that conversation. And when we go to him with that conversation in our weekly study, we talk about what he showed us through that. I think that's the blessing for me. That's the blessing.
All right. Now, Keisha, you're the last person, so I have to ask you.
Every other Friday. For me, I've discovered God from reading, and it's not just reading the Bible for me. Well, it started off as engaging in conversation with Jared, but I've found God in the readings, and I always find a way to apply that to daily life, some type of application, tangible application or whatever, and I think that's really cool. I feel like the words speak back to me, and it's not just boring reading, it's not just a story, it's something that I can actually take with me every day in my life, and it's taught me how to pray.
Thank you, Keisha. Thank you. So yeah, guys, that's what we're doing here, Water for the Thirsty. We're making the word come alive so that you can study for yourself, and then so that you can experience community as you study. I know a couple of people who've said the Bible is boring and it doesn't make sense. For a lot of us it doesn't. You'll see that in these conversations. But after talking, we get a little bit more perspective so that when we go back, it opens up a little bit more. And we just want to encourage you to spend time in the Word. If you say you love Jesus and you say he's your Savior, the only way to get to know him is to spend time in his Word. Not a verse here and a verse there, but every day, daily. And this forum helps to provide accountability, because we're going to ask you what was the word for the day as you read the reading plan. Keisha gets that all the time. And you get a schedule. So if you're not self-directed like Randy, you now have a Bible reading plan which you can download from waterforthethirsty.com. There's a little link that says download the reading plan, so you can download the reading plan and follow along with us. And you get community. Sharika doesn't like that word, but you get a forum where people can
no
talk.
one likes everything. Everybody's kind of
so we can talk and share and direct
person.
and be open and ask the seemingly crazy questions, or ask the outlandish questions, or show the realness of the situation, like Isaiah walking around naked for 3 years in Isaiah 20. I bet you didn't know that. I don't know if I could have done that.
Pretty sure.
Butt naked.
Butt naked, 3 years.
Nope.
I think I could have.
So God could send a message to him. I don't know about that.
Wow.
But yeah, those are the things we encounter. Those are the things we talk about. And so let's get to it now that you have a feel for what it is. So we've been in Isaiah, and we've been in Timothy, and of course we've been in the Psalms, because the Bible reading plan gives you a little bit of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and whatever, so that when you're in Leviticus, you're not stuck and lost. What blessed you this week? What really stood out to you this week that you were really encouraged by, or that blessed you? And if nothing blessed you, that's okay too.
I had one good question. So, Paul and I have issues, but one of our biggest issues.
Hold on. Is anybody else here who has issues with Paul? Let's just get that out of the way. Is there anybody else?
I have many issues with Paul. I'm trying to figure out how half of this stuff got in the word.
Okay.
But that's a whole. I guess we'll talk about.
I will take Sharika, and then we'll take you.
But as far as blessed.
Yes, let's start with blessed.
Okay.
Let's start with blessed.
I was just going to say I have a little bit of an issue with Paul, but it's more to do with how we use Paul than it is to do with what he wrote.
All right, let's start with blessed. Let's get the warm fuzzy stuff out of the way.
Yes.
Last time after we went off camera, I talked about how I'm not a praiser, and so I was I read and listened to David, and one of the things I was able to, and I still haven't cried.
Baby steps.
We're working on that. We're working on that.
But what I did realize and I understood is like, well, what I would like to adopt into my life is the fact of his, like, he had perspective. Like, and that's kind of what blessed me over the past week. Like, he knows his role. He knows where he fits in this thing between him and God. He knows where, you know, if you're a sinner and you have, you know, and you're wicked, this is where you fit. You know, if you are wicked and you understand that you're wicked and you know that your only power is, like, he knows all of these various things. And although I probably wouldn't listen to any of the songs that he would put these words into, in reading them and listening to the Bible and reading reading him and what he said really blessed me, and it helped me to kind of begin to, you know, try to attain that perspective.
So will I see you in church tomorrow?
No, not praising. Nothing significant. Thankfulness.
Yes.
I'm thankful, but but also understanding where, you know, the fact that I'm a sinner and the fact that, you know, not only am I a sinner, but I have to, I think, was it 43, chapter 43, 42, whatever it was, where, you know, the deer panted. Like, I have to want God that much, and I have to understand that me wanting God that much is only going to help me, even if I don't attain like all the riches and all the wealth. You know, I think one of the things he was saying was that, you know, if you know, you only have a couple of things essentially, and you have God, then you have to realize that you're okay. And we say that all the time, but I don't think we really understand that or think that really will happen.
All right. Anybody else was blessed by anything else this week? No.
I was blessed just by the general psalm. I looked and I said, man, there's a lot of psalms.
Yeah, a lot.
And they, unlike the other books, they don't flow. It's like they're choppy. And I said, man, there's something about psalm that gets me and I love about it, but it's so choppy. What is that about? And so when I got into my car and turned the ignition on, I turned on the radio, and then a great song came on, and I listened to it. And then they started talking, and I was like, no. So I changed again. I changed, and I found another song, and I listened to it, and it was great. And I kept doing that. And in my worship experience, the Lord stopped me and said, you do this all the time. In Psalm, you change the music to fit your mood. And that's what that is. That's what the Psalms are. They're a change of pace, a change of music to fit whatever the mood is. And so the Lord is awesome in that He gives us exactly what we want if we look for it. There's songs for everything. War, for peace, for love, for anything. And you just have to change the song.
Putin needs a song. Needs a different song. Sorry.
Anybody else had anything that blessed them on that side of the room?
I think that we're talking about the Psalms, and the Psalms have always been a source of inspiration for me because I'm a songwriter. And I'm like, how does this dude put these songs together? And they're lasting, these praise songs are lasting for centuries, and people read them. And it speaks to me of the continuity and the completeness of God, in that we can still see God the same way today as David did then. Wow. And the stuff that we sing about, we can sing a song, and we can look at something. And in Psalm 53, he says, you know, the foolish man says there's no God, but then God is everywhere around it. I mean, he's talking about things that are relevant to us in a postmodern world. And he was a shepherd. You know, he was fighting off animals with you know, slings. And that sling isn't a crazy weapon, but it's something that's very simple to make. You can get a shoelace and kind of real quick rig one up, but this guy is relevant. I mean, his conversation with God is so personal, and it's relevant. It's still relevant. That's the thing that blows me away about David, and a little bit even with Paul, where Paul's not writing telling us what to do. Paul is writing describing conversations he's having. This is one half of a dialogue that we're seeing.
Randy, I'm going to put a pause in the Paul thing for a second, because you might undermine their contribution in terms of why they dislike her.
No one's gonna undermine anyone's contribution.
I did have one thing that blessed me, particularly in Isaiah 24. If you could turn there right quick. Isaiah 24 from about verse 13. Isaiah 24 verse 13.
Isaiah, my goodness.
This
Yeah, I know you don't like him either. That's all right. The New Living Translation says, throughout the earth, the story is the same. Only a remnant is left, like the stray olives left on a tree or a few grapes left on the vine after harvest. But all who are left shout and sing for joy. Those in the west praise the Lord's majesty. In eastern lands give glory to the Lord. In the lands beyond the sea praise the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. Now, you'd have to read this in context to fully get it, but it was, Isaiah was going on in the first 12 verses about how desolate the land was and how barren it was and how bad things were or was going to be. And there was only a remnant left, but you found those remnant in the midst of all those bad things, doing what Kenrick struggles with, and that's praising. And the disposition of the remnant here blessed me and encouraged me. So I wanted to share that, so the next time you guys read Isaiah, you might find something in there that might bless you like this. All right? All right. We can talk about Paul now. Sure, you got... Give me an issue.
Okay. I feel like Paul is very judgmental. He's a judgmental guy. One, he started judging different lifestyles. I feel like, he talked about the widows and how basically they're just idle. They need to go marry and find things to do with themselves and let the church take care of them, and don't let them come to your house because they're just going to waste your time too and distract you from your doings, type of thing. And it just seemed very orthodox modern day church to me. Just like putting people in categories and saying they are bad for this or they are good for this, or the church has other things to take care of, and just saying off with those and off with those and off with those. And I just didn't like it. I just felt like it was so, in a way, slightly pious of Paul to even say something like that. And then he went on, and I guess this is where my problem continues, and he starts to talk about the godlessness in the last days and the type of people and the love of the world and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yo, Paul, you go real hard on these people. This is supposed to be a letter to Timothy, and you're telling him some stuff, but you're really being really judgmental of these people.
Did you see when he was calling out some of them guys? He called about 6 guys back.
Yeah.
He's just like, I gave that one over to Satan, and that one deserted me. Like, put them on real blast.
So
why is that okay? Like, that's not okay.
But
like,
but kind of like So, and I mentioned this to Jared when we first started. I don't know if these letters, and this is me, should actually be part of the Word of God.
Why not?
They seem kind of personal.
definitely.
Like you said, like no one's gonna we have Twitter now, but like the whole Donald Sterling thing, like that was a personal conversation he had that was taped. This is kind of like a personal letter to, he's setting the standards for this new church. He's you're going to all these places. He's telling his leader, his he calls him my son in faith. He's telling this guy, these are some of the things you need to look for. Just like, you would probably tell somebody like, yo, when you go to this church, just look out for this. They're going to do this, and they're going to do this. Watch out for this. That's not a public conversation. So that's one of my things that kind of, that stuck out to me. But then the other thing kind of to combat that is kind of like this is a new church. This is he's establishing some type of, authority and protocol and all these types of things. So part of it's understandable, but I don't know if it's supposed to really be there, which led me to question some other things.
Feels like there's a different perspective happening on this side of the room, and so I'm just gonna turn to listen to the thoughts that come from this side of the room to what these guys are saying.
Okay, I'm not going to disagree.
Okay.
But what
That's
I am
different
going
for
to
you.
say is my perspective is that I'm encouraged.
Okay. Why?
Because what he was doing was he was pointing out that they're not perfect. He's pointing out that they had issues in the church. One of the reasons why a lot of people don't come to church is because they don't realize they're hypocrites, judging people who turn out to be hypocrites. They said, you know what, you're in church, you're supposed to be perfect. But then when we mess up, it's just like, oh, you're a hypocrite. What he's saying is, okay, these are some of the issues they have way back then. These people were closer to the lifetime of Jesus. Mm-hmm. These were people who were the beneficiaries of a lot of these miracles, being raised from the dead. And even then, they had issues. Mm-hmm. And so when we have church now, and you have someone who, let's say the widow, right? She's 23, her husband died, and she came over your house this Sabbath, she didn't bring no juice or nothing for the past 8 months.
The criteria is ridiculous.
And it's like, okay, you gave her money, you gave her money. Okay, wait, I have 3 kids. I'm married. I don't, but I have 3 more kids, and I'm married, and I'm working hard, and she's a widow. She's 23. Get a job. No, the church is not going to support you.
But that's a different time. Her only job was prostituting. If she didn't have a thing.
No, it's not. You could own businesses and so forth. If you didn't have a husband, she probably was left with land.
Sorry,
I didn't read that part.
Who was he talking to, and where are the people?
He was
well, this is still a letter to Timothy. Like, this is still just
right. But where's Timothy?
Can we find that?
There's some context.
Yeah, it does.
This is First Timothy. I think he starts talking about it
in
chapter 2 or 3.
First Timothy chapter 2.
2 Timothy chapter
First Timothy. No, First Timothy.
About the widow?
No, the widow's that was in second.
That's in 2 Timothy.
Yeah.
The widow. Yeah.
That's
so you read it. Yeah, read it and think. And when you put it in its context, this was saying there are people who really need the church to support them.
And I want to just jump on that. At the time when we look in the book of Acts, the role of the church was a financial support for a lot of the people who were members. Because
can we find those verses?
Yes.
Yes.
Second Timothy what?
2 Timothy. Hold on, I'm gonna find it.
I think it was if it was
Second Timothy, 1 Timothy 5:16. 1 Timothy 5, because I made a note.
Yes.
It is 5. I'm sorry, man. You were right.
I made a note that it seemed like the budget of the church was spent on helping the unfortunate people. It seemed like a big part of the budget of that.
Yeah.
But that's at that time was that.
Is that wrong?
No, I just say it's different.
Exactly
It's different. It's different from what we
yeah. Oh,
no. Okay. So when you read through what it's saying is it's not just saying kick them to the curb, because I think some of us want to say, oh, kick them to the curb. It's saying, you know what, these widows, if they have family, if they have children, if they have grandchildren, these are people. There should be people in their lives who can help them. If they're not, the church needs to help them. They need to be put on a list. But everyone who's a widow can't be put on the list for the church to support them.
Yes, so but then you come down and you just put a hard line, and you're like, he's 60 years old.
No,
and there are things you have to prove.
Yes,
like he gives you a list of things.
We know
no
now.
Widow, verse 9. No widow may be put on the list of widows unless she's over 60. Has been faithful to her husband. Is well known for her good deeds. So she couldn't have donated stuff. Anonymously. She has to be well known for it, known well for her good deeds, such as bringing up her children, showing hospitality, washing the feet of the Lord's people, helping those in trouble, and devoting herself to all kinds of good deeds. If she doesn't do nail one of those, or all of them but one,
no, it is setting standards.
It's more than a standard.
It's setting standards, and I'm saying this because if I bring it to modern day, I know that I can struggle. And there can be people who come into the church and they've been there for 2 weeks. They drain money and then they keep going. There's no standards. If there's no standards, then anybody could say, you know what, I'm broke. Let me go to church and have them pay my bill. And so when you set certain standards, that's what this is trying to do. It's not trying to say, oh, you're a widow. Too bad. See ya. This is saying not everyone who says I'm a widow needs for the church to give them money. There are people who are still dishonest, even in the church.
Go ahead.
Marjorie.
Here's the issue with that though. This seems like I have to show what I'm doing in order to gain from a church that is supposed to take care of me, or based on what we were the schooling that it's like if I haven't been showing that I've been doing these good things while my husband was alive, now that he is dead, none of this is on record. Someone's keeping record. It reminds me, sadly, of like when tithe giving and when it comes to time for board membership, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're not going to give your tithes March, April, May, and so therefore, no position for you. That is what it reminds me of.
Or
and
a
you know
portion
what?
of position.
You know, and
We'll prorate
it
your
goes
position.
even further to say, but refuse to enroll younger widows. Like,
For what reason, too? Like, for what reason?
But you have to read the
Because
whole thing.
Because
Throw
they
them
are potential
away.
hoes.
like
What?
it's exactly what it says.
Like,
It's
they
so
potentially could be, like, really?
They could
like,
take your husband out of your hands.
That's the
guys.
reason why?
Okay, first, remember we were talking.
Read the whole thing.
Go ahead, Randy.
He talked now. I don't know if I have a whole lot of insight. This is my perspective. Okay. He starts it off by saying, "Do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father. Older women as mothers, young women as sisters in all purity." This sets the tone for the whole
Yes,
conversation.
exactly.
Okay? Anything after that is within that context.
Yes.
We need to remember that.
Yes.
Once we have this context set, he also says, honor widows who are truly widows.
Yes.
He didn't say give them an age limit or anything. He says, look, but if a widow has children or grandchildren, he says, let them teach their kids how to be right. She's a widow. She's left all alone. She set her hope on God and continues in supplications and prayer. But if she's who is self-indulgent is dead even while she lives. He's describing
A specific type of woman.
He's describing two kinds of people.
Yes.
First of all, he's saying there are some widows who, with supplication, go to God. There are some widows who are self-indulgent and they're dead. He's not even saying, I'm going to tell you which one is which. I think then he begins to unpack the whole concept that he's sharing with and the reasons
specific.
why.
He gets a bit specific though, and starts shaping the conversation from there. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but now he further shapes and starts detailing that.
Think about.
But my biggest problem is
it.
it contradicts a bit.
But let's look at verse 8 real quick because again, he is still defining his terms. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and the his is just the generic any person, right? And especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. He's saying, listen, what I'm about to tell you is serious. If you're not helping your people, you may as well not even follow this thing. Now, I think we begin to switch from this because he's saying we must help these widows. We must do this. Now, there are going to be some situations. And I think that not kind of unlike he did in 2 Timothy chapters 1 and 2 where he starts calling the brothers out, he might be speaking about someone specific here. There may be one woman that they all know about, but he didn't say her name. We don't know that.
But you don't make rules for just one person.
Why not? Why not? Because if you're writing to someone in one church, you might just do that.
So you're just saying we're just not going to help anybody under 60.
We're saying
because it's one person.
She might. He's like. He said she might be under. This is my. This is
no might.
No.
None. Widow may be put. Verse 9.
No, but what version?
Oh, NIV.
Okay.
No widow, none, 0.
Okay.
That's not amplified. That's kind of right. No widow may be put on the list of widows unless she is over 60. Has been. Then he goes through the list. So we've already gone through the list. My thing also is that this is a bit contradictory, and I can't take you exactly to the verse, but back when the children of Israel and Jesus established the economy of Israel and essentially talked about how the widows would glean the outer, even then Jesus didn't give, or God didn't give specifics as to which widows and who. He said, just look after them, just leave your edges and let the widows glean the edges. So my thing is, why are we now, in this time, now we're contradicting kind of what God is. Now we're setting limits and criteria for who can think.
Because now he's talking to specifics that have a budget to do so. First, we can't keep skipping over the first part of this book where he says, listen, be responsible for each other. Now, the church itself, you're giving tithe and offering. There's a limited amount of money. I don't have a limited amount of money like the church has. So if I have money and you are my nephew.
Relative, right.
I'm supposed to give you money. I'm not
Right.
supposed to make you go to the church and say, I'm an orphan, support me. I'm supposed to do that first. And so what the church is saying is listen, don't send him, because it's not just about widows. It talks about a whole bunch of people if you pay close attention. He can't just go there and say, oh, you need to support me because I don't have anyone. My dad died, my mom died. Where's your aunt? Your aunt is supposed to take care of you too,
Yeah,
before
go tell
you even
your
come
aunt.
to the church.
And then
Speak-
she's like, bumping.
But how do you
Speak-
keep people from abusing the system?
And that's the thing.
This,
The church has a
Because
budget.
that's what it
You
looks like.
only-
That's
you
what was
can-
happening. People were abusing the system, and you was trying to
People-
tell Timothy how to safeguard from the abuse.
Now,
save who?
Safeguard against the
Oh,
abuse.
safeguard. I think you said save God. I was like, hold on.
Sorry,
Sorry, I'm not.
Guys,
I'm the train.
think about this though, and I agree with exactly what you're saying. And I, from my perspective, which is all how I was counting everything, we're reading about something that we don't have the full context for. We're reading about something that, when I read it, and I've read this before, I'm like, that's a little harsh, Paul. Like, you really came for the sisters.
Then
Like,
don't put
for
the
real,
letter
man.
in there.
Why
Don't
you
put
do
something
that?
that we don't have context.
Whoa. I mean, but we don't have context.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We don't have context. No, but we really don't have context for anything, really. We're taking it by faith. I mean, anything we read in the Bible, the context is the Bible itself. I mean, so when we're looking at this, we got to look. Okay, what was he talking about? He was talking about you got to love everybody, right? You guys have got to do these things together. We know that the church in the book of Acts was having everything in common, which was a big deal. But at the same time, when we're looking at these specific texts, and we begin to say, well, I have a problem with how Paul said this, we can't look at that one text in isolation, because we are doing that. We are looking at that one text in isolation and saying, he was not right in saying this.
There was a pattern in Timothy where Paul was making several things
What?
about.
Hold on one second. For those of you who are looking on, this is not just you look at us conversate. If you'd like to join in, there's a number that should be coming up on the screen in a second. I don't know it off the top of my head. Forgive me, next time we do this, I'll probably know what the number is. You can call the number and you can call in and be a part of the conversation as well if you want to. Sorry, Kendrick.
No, go ahead.
I know. I guess my whole point, and I'm going to make it much shorter than I think it probably is about to be. How do we read the Bible? Are we coming to the Bible and saying, Paul, what are you talking about? Or are we saying, okay, let me try to figure out how this would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try to figure out how this would make sense to, first of all, my modern mind. Let me try to figure out why would God put this in here? Why would this be a part of the canon? Why would this be and let's
That's
try
my
to,
question.
Let's
Hold on,
try
hold
to
on.
figure it out.
I like how you clean that up, because I was like, did God put it in there?
Yeah.
Well, is God in control of it? This is the question. I mean,
Let's not go there.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes,
have
we-
that
yes,
answer.
Yes, I already said it. I already said it in my opening statement
Yes.
that we all agree that the Bible is the foundation of our faith here. And so if we don't agree on the Bible, then there's a lot of then the
Well,
conversations
conversation,
become
yes.
I do agree with that.
So I guess my point is, are we seeking to find it making sense? Or are we seeking to find it making not sense? That's what I do. I'm a linguist. I teach English. I can read anything in the Bible and tell you why it would be the exact opposite of what it means. I know how to do that in the words that I would use. And so my point is this: how hard are we looking for it to make sense in our own personal study?
This is
That's
the thing,
my
like,
question.
when I read the Bible, I'm reading it for inspiration. I'm reading it for guidance. I'm reading for heavenly guidance, as opposed to when I read a verse and says, "I do not permit." Whoa, huh? What? That's not God speaking. This is a letter. You wrote a letter to somebody else. That's so. I'm just saying, like, when when I'm reading the Old Testament, you're reading Matthew and you're reading Mark and all that kind of stuff, and you're reading other parts of the Bible. Like, you can derive that it's inspirationally given by God. When I start reading, for lack of a better word, like opinions or best practices, I start getting a bit
I like that.
a bit concerned, because although yes, these are some things that probably should be instituted. My thing is that I don't know if I can really go as far as to say this is gospel. This is the way we should impose, rules and regulations, even with our church, if we're using the Bible as.
So.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
It also offers what kind of leads into what my next question was. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, he starts to speak about godlessness in the last days.
Mm-hmm.
And up to then, I'm with Kenrick, where I'm like, all right, Paul's giving me his opinion on something. Now, has Paul changed over from opinion to inspiration, or is this still Paul's opinion of how last day people will really be?
And you're specifically talking about what?
For example, he's saying Second Timothy chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's
at least 1 to 5.
Yeah, at least 1 to 5. Lovers of themselves, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive. Is this opinion? Is this gospel? Where did the two cross? 1, and 2. I see that a lot of times in church we will use this as a means to say these are last days. These kind of characteristics have been in and out of the world forever.
Forever, yes.
This means this is gonna sound wrong. This means nothing as far as
prophetic,
right, because this is a cycle of the world. So what is this?
This is I was about to say I'm typing a text to Keisha right now. What makes a prophet a prophet? What makes a prophetic word a prophetic word? What makes a prophetic word something different than an opinion?
If I bring it back to being a mom, I'm a mom, and I am not God. Definitively, you don't have to look it up or anything like that.
We don't.
I'm going to tell you. But there are certain wisdoms through experience and through spending time with God that I can speak to my child and tell him or them, this is what you really should do. Don't do that. Now, if he turned around and looked at me and said, who are you?
To tell me that.
Who are you to tell me what to do? Then how does God feel about that? There are certain things that we are missing in the Bible. This every single detail of these people's lives didn't go into the Bible, but certain things that they said made it in. And for us to look at those things and be like, who are you to tell me what to do? Because we have issues. I have issues with people telling me what to do, but it's typically when I want to do something different. It's typically when I think something is unfair and I want to make my own rules and regulations to even things out. And so when we do look at the Bible and we say, you know what, he's talking to someone, what authority does he have? On one end, when he's healing and he's doing all these things, he has God's authority. But then when he talks and he speaks and says, you know what, you guys know that this is the woman who these are women who go from house to house to house. You're like, wait a minute, he's judging them. Shame on him. We can't have it both ways.
But my thing is that you can't definitively say that.
But
Because you don't have the proof that he was talking about specific people. That's my
I
whole
didn't say
like
that.
I
didn't say
it's just
he's speaking from some type of experience. He said, like if you look at it, if you read the Bible, because that's not my opinion. When he says about the women, chapter 5, he says
1 Timothy 5.
1 Timothy
This is not
5. He says, thus 5:12. Thus they bring judgment on themselves because they have broken their first pledge. Besides, they get into the habit of being idle and going about from house to house. And not only do they become idlers, but also gossipers and busybodies, saying things they ought not to. And then he goes on and on. So it's like, okay, he's making this stuff up. He's making these things up just out of his head. He's like, I can envision women who, when he's speaking to these churches,
in this case to Timothy,
and when he's speaking, the people know that he's speaking the truth. Just like if our pastor goes up, I love pastors. I have a favorite.
You're married.
I have a favorite. Not everything they say is right. What my friend or my husband says in my house, as opposed to what they say in a pulpit, I'm not going to put what he says in our bedroom in this book.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to hold him accountable for stuff like that. But what he says that the Holy Spirit said to him on the pulpit, that might be something to have a discussion about. That's something that's supposed to hold more clout. Now, I'm not saying they're prophets and so forth, but there's a difference. And so when this makes it into the Bible, we are supposed to learn something from it.
But that doesn't, and I don't think any of us are saying we shouldn't learn from it. What I'm saying is I agree with Kenrick that you can switch from being prophet to opinion at any given point in the conversation. I think for example, with many of Ellen G. White things, I think she's prophetess and then she's opinionated. And they could be in the same thing.
Might be people who are looking on don't know who Ellen G. White is. I just wanted to interject. Ellen G. White is a writer. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to describe her to people because I just know who she is. Can somebody help me? Somebody help.
Who is she to you? Who is she to you?
She's somebody with a great opinion, maybe inspired, and you know, a lot of people use her text as reference to explain the stuff of the Bible. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead.
And
Sorry.
to even piggyback what you said, she inspires, she prophesies, and she gives opinion. So I can have it two ways. I can have Paul prophesying. I can have Paul speaking on behalf of God. And then I can have Paul giving me a straight opinion, whether it be a very pious opinion, whether it be a very sexist opinion. I'm not sure. But I can get it all from him in one good book because he kind of just moves around. And I think the problem is
that he gives. It's the blanket alls and the blanket annies and all that kind of stuff that to me doesn't fit within
the context. And see, my question is this: what could we have read in the book of Paul, or not in the book, but in any of these books of Paul wrote in the book of Timothy that we're reading, right? That how could he have phrased that differently and made it satisfactory? And then once it's satisfactory, what does it mean? What's the point of it?
You know what's interesting?
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
I feel the tone, maybe I'm reading it wrong. The tone in which I'm interpreting this is very reflective of Old Testament, very stern God. And this coming right after Jesus and him pushing love and him pushing this and you know, the care for each other and the way it starts to the way it finishes. It's like, Paul, what happened to the love? I feel like we lost the love.
Okay.
And we
I like that.
I
like that.
Paul is a Pharisee,
that.
right?
Yeah,
He's Old Testament.
That's
who he is.
That's who he is.
So when he accepts that Jesus is
And
the
he's
Messiah,
crazy. Like
that's
he's
all he
crazy like
accepted.
Old Testament. Like,
and that's what I'm saying. And that's what it reads to me. So maybe what I would need from Paul is a little soft.
But
to answer, to kind of, but time to answer. Oh no,
please.
No.
She speaks. She speaks. Go ahead.
I was gonna say in the beginning, Paul is kind of like a daddy figure to me, in that he's very disciplinary. He's very encouraging. He's very, I come to you and I hope you're doing this. I hope you're keeping the faith. And somebody told me that you are keeping the faith. And it reminds me of my father a little bit. He's not as good as my dad, but he reminds me of my dad. And I feel like the reason that he defined the rules so much, and I'm with Shonice, I feel like it's a standard.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Leave It to Beaver this week.
Huh?
Don't judge me. And there were like
on what?
5 kids. Sorry, 5 kids in the backseat of the car, and that was normal. One was hanging outside, one was sitting on the window. They were driving. And why is it now that we can't do that? Because we've gotten reckless. We need defined rules. We need it to be simplified. We need to get into, like the heart of it. We need to know, okay, what you're doing is wrong.
So I'm cool with rules. I'm actually not, as you know. But I'm cool with defining rules. I have kids. I got to define rules. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, my thing is, and I'm more concerned with not necessarily how he's writing this letter to Timothy. My concern is always how it's taken and then applied through the years. Right. And my thing is that many things in the Bible, although, yes, in context it might serve a certain thing, we take things literally and we come back with the annies and the alls and all this stuff. And so at that point, now we're becoming dictators in this religious thing, as opposed to you know, the love and all that kind of stuff, and actually coming from maybe where Paul is coming from.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I'm coming.
This is exactly my point. This is why I asked the question that I asked you.
Mm-hmm.
Had he said it differently, what would have been the results, and how would we perceive that? And what does it mean? What does it mean when Paul says, "Yo, there are some ladies who are going through your churches and taking your money. Don't let them do that." You know what? I honestly think that you probably, if the woman's young, let her get married again. Let her husband take care of her, because that makes sense. She can probably still have kids. You know, I don't know how they perceive women in that culture. I don't know how Paul thought about women, but I know it was different than the way I think about women now. But at the same time, what does it mean for me now to read something that I perceive as sexist or as even racist in the Bible? There's parts of the Bible he says, you know, if you're a slave, just, you know, for me as an African American man, I got an issue with that. Like, if you're a slave, just be okay with your master. Are you nuts? Let's go, you know, let's do some slave rebellion kind of stuff in my head. But the reality is, when we come back to it, we begin to think, what is the reason he's saying this? And what is the purpose of it? If he said it differently, how would it affect me? And why is my reaction? I guess my question is, why is my reaction so strongly, whatever it is? If I have an issue with something, why is my reaction that strong?
Because I have an issue with authority, period.
Okay. Well,
there you go.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Right.
I fight for the man that's not going to fight against authority.
Who's
on
that?
Camera? I'll take the fall for you.
I think my problem is that we will take these things out of whatever context we're supposed to receive them,
right,
and inject them into this church, and to say these type of people are the last day people, and that type of woman is the one that Paul was talking about, and this type of man is that, and that's my problem with it.
Right.
We're now making them into modern day people and saying this,
and that contradicts
this.
Like all the, like, if you go through the list of the people who Christ reached while he was on things, like that contradicts, like Mary, like she's done, like you're done, you gotta go.
Exactly.
Like it contradicts. So that's so.
But, you know, it sounds to me like the problem is not really with Paul.
Well,
it sounds to me that the problem is with the application of Paul's words to a modern audience or to a modern setting. I mean, we're saying, yo, we use these words to, you know, I remember growing up in church, they were like, she got pregnant, kick her out to church. Like, are you serious? She's pregnant. She's going to have a baby. Why are you going to do this? Well, the Bible says this, and then people start using the Bible as a bludgeon instead of saying, okay, let's try to figure out how we can help this person. The whole first part of that chapter says we have to love each other more than anything else. And when we look at these individual texts and we say, he's saying all this, he's pointing fingers at people, well, what's the context of the whole thing? He said, we got to love everybody. That was the first thing he said. And if we look at that from that prism, I think it shapes the way we perceive what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And that actually,
go ahead. And before he goes into the whole responsibility of the church to them, he holds individuals accountable. And that's something we miss. We miss the part that even if the church is not, it's not the church's responsibility to take care of these specific people. He says, I'm your brothers and sisters in Christ. You take care of them. I see you suffering. You take care of them. These are the people. The list should be shorter about people who the church has to fund. And when we're talking about funding, we're talking about the church with Social Security. This is for the rest of people's lives.
Right.
Sure.
Because if you look closely, it says if you didn't remarry, then the church was your, that was your support for the rest of your life. So if someone was 23, for the rest of her life, she's being supported by the church. And how much of a burden that is when she has brothers, sisters, and even no kin to her. But it's my job to make sure I look out for her.
Right, as a church member.
And then after that, after it tells us love one another, look out for each other, these are the people. These are the people who the church really can't afford to take care of for the rest of their lives. Here's the list.
I'm want to stay right there on the church has to look after, and the budget and the use of the money.
Oh, you don't want me to start on that. You don't want me to start on that.
It stood out to me, and I made a note of it in my little notebook here.
Mm-hmm.
That the bulk of the funds, it seemed interesting that the bulk of the funds that the church brought in was to take care of people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't for the worship service.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't to pay no musicians. It wasn't to entertain the people. It was to take care of people. People were selling their homes so that they could all have in common. Acts 2.
And when they didn't, and when they lied about it, they got chopped. I mean, it was it.
They were dead. They were dead.
Immediately dead.
They were dead. So, but you know what? But you know what's really strong about this? People didn't have to be paid because everyone was so honest with each other that if I knew you were coming in to preach from town, it wasn't like, oh, I don't know what that pastor's saying. You stay with me. I'll feed you. And then you came and you helped me build something. You helped me do something. You were a workman worthy of your hire. You know what I mean?
He says in Timothy, he says, make sure you have a job, man. He says Timothy, make sure you
don't work, you don't eat.
Yeah, he says keep stay employed. Make sure you have a job so you can make a contribution. The concept is always this: who are the least of these amongst us? How can we help them? If a woman is 23 years old and she's a widow, first of all, someone found her attractive in the beginning. There may be another brother out there who's like, let's hook it up. If she's 60 now, she might have a problem finding that man who's going to be like, I want to help you out in life. I want to partner with you. That makes sense to my brain.
So I guess my question is, how do we make those things a priority for us?
Well, somebody was there. If the church was there to take care of her when she was younger, when she got 60, maybe someone could marry her or find her attractive.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe she's just been so hard because Paul kicked her out. That's kind of hard.
Wow.
Now
she was not
worn
kicked out
down.
from the church. She was never kicked, and that's another thing too. We make things harsher than they
Nobody's
are.
gonna marry that.
She was not kicked out from the church.
We make things harder. The dude says he turned those guys over to Satan. I still want to know what that means.
And so
that's heavy,
sounds like
he's saying do not financially support them.
Angry.
Do not financially support them. It's
and I've turned like 7 people over to Satan.
And they still come back to church. And they
if that's what it is, like I'm not supporting you financially. Oh.
Yeah.
My parents did that to me.
So how do we, seeing that one of the strong messages coming out of Timothy that we have spoke about was the love and concern for, the least of these, and then each person being responsible for whoever is within their sphere of influence or concern or care. How can we adopt more of that kind of a mindset in our churches? Because we've kind of become every man for themselves, except in special.
Well, it's kind of what Randy what he kind of said earlier, and it's in at the end of 1 Timothy 4. It says, Paul is telling Timothy, be diligent in these matters, give yourself wholly to them, so that everyone may see your progress. Watch your life doctrine closely. Persevere in them. Because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. Like he's telling him, this is not something that you are telling them to do. These are new believers. This is a church.
Right.
Like they're learning. So now you have to be the example. So to answer your question, he's given us our commission. We have to show it. We have to do it. We have to live it.
Not only that, I think one thing we don't do in the church is look back and teach. I mean, if someone is saying, I think we have Brothers Keepers Fund down here, but if someone's saying, I need help with my rent or I need help with this bill, instead of throwing the $200 or the $300 that way, hold on, how are you managing your finances? Are you living outside your means? Let me help you learn how to budget. Let me help you how to do this. Let me help you how to do that. Or I know some churches have bought houses and rent lower income people at a discount, so you can learn to save, and then you can stay here for 6 months, and we move you out. And I think that's the part that's kind of modern day. Paul saying, teach them. Show them. If they see you do it, you figured something out.
Right.
Turn around, teach them now, and send them on their way. And always open yourself to help them. And that's the part I think as a church where we've closed up ourselves to opening our lives and showing how we've kind of gained, and then helping the next man come back around and try to gain.
Something you said is deep, but I'm going to go back, and I'm not going to be an advocate for opposition,
Paul.
But I'm just saying. But I'm saying, on one end, you guys were saying he's telling them what to do. He's getting into their business, and on the other end, you're saying teach the people how are you working your finances. You have to get into people's business. If you just don't hand them out the money,
Yeah,
You
but you're getting,
understand?
but you're individually getting. My thing is like you're doing on an individual basis as opposed to putting a blanket over everybody.
But the
That's
whole
my
thing in
only
terms of the blanket is if there are lots of people who need money, how do you
Create
deal with
that,
the
right.
individual if you don't have a blanket statement or a policies and procedures by which to go by?
Yeah,
Because the truth is, if I lost my job last month and I asked the church to pay my mortgage,
and their
you can ask
cutoff
them to-
was 40. They were like, no, you gotta wait.
but
next year.
I didn't get the cutoff. But I didn't get the cutoff. And then, you paid my mortgage, and then the same month you paid my mortgage, I went out and I bought me a new car.
But they're giving
And
a
so-
cutoff, so the lady that's 58,
And
59.
And so
She ain't in it.
But before
I don't have the problem with the blanket statement.
Before
It's
the
just a
cutoff,
generalization.
see,
That's
before
my
the
thing.
cutoff, before the general statement, there was a blanket statement that said, "Take care of
Everybody.
everyone."
Yeah, and
Take care of
that's crucial.
everyone. The blanket statements are for the church to have guidelines because we have a church treasurer, and she can't hand out checks to every single body who comes up in there.
Melinda's
Think about-
really
she
good.
She cannot, and she will tell you, "I love you, people, but I'm not
Guys.
going to hell for you, and I'm not going to jail for you."
We can
She'll say
continue
that.
this conversation in the next couple of minutes, but we need to kind of wrap it up for the
Okay.
other people who are joining us vicariously through the internet.
Okay.
So, quickly, what's the lesson for us? What's the takeaway? And we can go around this way. What's the takeaway, Kenrick? Now that you've
For me,
voiced your disapproval with Paul, and we've talked about it, what's your
I
takeaway?
like Pablo. So the my takeaway is kind of what we just talked about. It's just the accountability.
Okay.
Like Kenrick, you live it, you show it, you do it, and implore everybody else to take on their responsibility. And if we do that, then everybody gets taken care of.
Yes.
Okay. Sharika.
I think the takeaway, the more we talked about it, the more reading miscommunicates things. So when we're reading the Bible, make sure we're not in a certain mood. Because I was angry at Paul. I'm just messing with him. But now that we've talked about it, we looked at it a different way. It's kind of like, well, step back for a minute. Look at the first blanket statement. Consider where he's coming from, and understand that discipline sometimes is just out of love. And I think at the end of the day, if Paul was living there, I love them people. I love them. I beat them, but I love those people. And make sure
Paul
whatever
could
you're
not
doing
make it
is
today.
it's out of love.
Shanice?
What I took away from this and the gist of all the readings was we can't put God in a box, whereas He has to hand out love, affection, in the way we want it to every single one all the time. That we have to take responsibility not only for one another but for ourselves and what situation we find ourselves in. Because if not, then we might become under a blanket statement and have to have consequences because of that.
Randy?
My takeaway is how am I reading the Bible? Like, how am I approaching this word? How am I approaching the text? Am I looking for stuff that will feed my disapproval or dislike or my doubt in the word? Because trust me, I will find it there.
Yeah.
Or am I looking for stuff that will say, well, this doubt may not be found, and let me try to figure out why this doubt doesn't make sense. Let me try to figure out why Paul's my favorite writer in the Bible. Like, I gotta go now look through the works of Paul and see what he wrote and make this. I want him to be my favorite writer because right now we have an issue. I have a problem with him. I think that's what reasoning means. When you have a problem with somebody, all right, we're gonna hash this whole thing out. Let me hear your whole perspective, man. I think that for me is my takeaway. How do I approach the word? Can I do it in a way that says, God, show me what I need to know when I have a problem? Because if I have a sticking point in the word, it probably isn't the word. It's probably me.
Keisha? Yeah, I can't leave you out.
Be the example.
Be the example.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for those of you who tuned in to join this conversation with us. I encourage you to join us in reading the Bible and making notes. You can like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. The links are all on waterforthethirsty.com.
Don't go to that one.
The links are all on waterforthethirsty.com. There's a little link for the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And as you read along, feel free to post your thoughts, write questions, ask us, ask anything. There's a forum for people here.
Is there a question for this week?
Is there a question for this week?
Oh, we didn't even answer the question.
We
No,
don't
we
have
did.
Yeah.
But, oh, we did on online.
Facebook.
On
Yeah,
Facebook.
I didn't.
I didn't
Yeah,
log on.
so
Okay.
also guys, you guys can also, contribute on Facebook too.
Yes.
Come on in there.
So I got
I have a question I
Hold
want.
on,
Cool.
on
Yeah,
camera.
yeah.
I have a question I want to leave with. Psalm 34, 9 and 10. Psalm 34, 9 and 10. We'll quickly go there. Oh gosh, my Bible too big. Psalm 34, 9 and 10. Anybody find it before me? You could read it.
Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. For those who fear him have no lack. The young lions suffer want and hunger, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing.
All right, so that's nice and encouraging and whatnot on the surface. But did you notice the lions go hungry? But his eye is on the sparrow, but not on the lions. I'm gonna leave you with that one for tonight.
No, that's not what it says. That's not what it
And we can
says.
talk about it on Facebook.
That's not what it says.
Or next time when we
I
have
like it.
a
I like it. I
roaming.
get it. I have a perspective on it now.
The lion's roaming to and fro, and he's not sitting and being
The
patiently waiting
lions
for
get
God.
hungry.
Wow.
He's feeding the sparrows. His eye is on the sparrow,
Mm-hmm.
But the lion's going hungry. So
No. It says
We
not
saying
one of
good
them
night.
falls without him knowing.
We're
So
saying
sparrows
good night.
even fall.
okay, all right.
Oh.
You just asked a question. No, there's nothing to go on Facebook. Thanks, Shanice.
We're saying good night.
I thought we're offline, right?
And we're still on.
All right, so let's just ignore
It's
what you just
Kenrick,
said. Think about the
Sharika,
question.
Shanice, Randy,
Bye,
Keisha.
thank you.
I'm Jared. Have a good night, guys. Enjoy
Good
the rest
night.
of your Sabbath.
Good night.
I do have a question. I do have something that I didn't want to put on you guys real quick. It
It's
says,
still playing.
it says,
No, it
no,
isn't.
it's off. It's off. It says, in Psalm, I think it says 37:25. I was young and now I'm old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread.
I've seen them beg
They are
bread.
always generous. They're always generous. They are always generous. You may keep reading it. They're always generous and lend freely. Their children will be blessed. So the question I have is, if we are poor and or forsaken, is that an outward sign that we or our parents have been or are unrighteous?
Can I ask you
No.
to post that same question on Facebook
Or
tonight or
text it
tomorrow
to me.
morning?
Can I give it to you? You know,